Welcome, everybody. Happy Kwaai Day, Friday, June 14th. This is the 46th Kwaai Day. Who would have believed it? And we've got a full agenda today. And you've got me as the MC, not Debbie. So Debbie's out today, but we have an agenda. I'm going to give you a very quick update, and then we're going to have our friend Sujith Nair, the author of the BeckN Protocol, telling us all about it. So then we're going to have member voices. Don't forget it's Father's Day. And okay, so I'm going to postpone the sort of weekly updates till later on so we can get Sujith in and out. We're already at a quorum, so we're over 20 members. We typically have about 40 or 50, but as they come in. So what I'm going to do is stop presenting. Sujith, you're free now to share your slides. I'm going to give you.
Looks like I already have the access to bring my screen up. Reza.
Fantastic. Okay.
Great. Excellent. Now, thank you so much, Reza, Doc, Toby, for reaching out and having this conversation a few months ago, and of course inviting me to the Kwaai weekly calls. I should have been here earlier. Unfortunately, the calendars, I just missed that on the calendar. That was a bummer last time, but so excited and happy to be here. I'm so happy to see that the calls are happening and 40 plus, weekly community calls. I remember some of the first community calls I had on BeckN 5 years ago, and how difficult it was to push the calls week after week. So generally appreciate communities which make a point to come and talk. Congratulations to all. I hope to join a few myself, just that all time is for the world I come from, but that the lightning on the idea and the inspiration behind it. Reza, if I got it right, I have 10 minutes to do this. Is that right?
You take as much time as you want, Sujith. Off you go.
Thank you. Yes, so let me jump right in and talk about why we in India, this idea sort of originates in India, and the history behind our thinking about how we believe markets at population scale, digital markets at population scale probably needs a rethink, because scale is such an important factor when you're talking about inclusion, factoring diversity, opening it for fair practices and players to come in from all sides, allowing innovation to come from all ends and not just from a concentrated few. We realize that such a market structure, such a possibility in the digital economy probably needs a rethink about how we fundamentally think about the model of digital economy that we seem to be confronted with. And I call it the system of parallel trenches. We seem to be digging deep in silos, trying to create this very specialized, in fact, extremely powerful, high quality sort of marketplaces that have evolved over the last 2.5 decades, where the essence of the idea to sort of kind of make a meaningful business model was to go with this way of thinking of the model of aggregation, where the premise fundamentally in that model is that you need to be somebody in between to bring both consumers and providers, supply and demand from both sides together onto this one big central platform. And that platform sort of becomes the means of access and also the means of offering quality and trust for the participants, for the market participants to sort of interact with each other. And while it has done great at some scale across the world in the last 2.5 decades, what we also realize is that it does create some sort of access and quality gridlock, where in the pursuit of quality and protecting your competitiveness, you have sort of stifled the vector of access, wherein the more specialized, the more powerful you become, you're actually cutting down access for the real people you intend to offer value and empower, which is essentially the small businesses, the consumers. Sort of, instead of expanding their agencies, you're cutting the agency, and then instead of giving choices, you're pretty much bringing down the choices to a very, very few, and thus leading to the kind of concentration we deal with, a little bit of political economy and incentive misalignment, and all this sort of creating this gridlock where innovation is pretty much an agenda of the very few, and people who possibly can innovate are struggling to sort of get onto the digital economy and create innovative solutions and expand access, make it more inclusive. And that sort of is the kind of the structure, the system that we have come to live with. And this fundamentally is premised on this model of design, which is about the model of aggregation. And the question we were asking, when we were thinking about, is there an alternative model to sort of solve for some of these challenges as an alternative to aggregation? And we sort of, it was not such a radical idea to look back at the design of the very internet or some of the early population scale infrastructure systems like internet or emails or telecommunication, which did not have this sort of an approach of aggregation, but rather the approach of interoperability, wherein it is possible for any two participants in using that infrastructure to be on different digital interfaces, platforms, infrastructure, and yet talk to each other. When it comes to emails, it gives us the agency and choice to pick any email platform of our choice and interact with anybody else who happens to use another platform, and we can still exchange emails, and with no central aggregator in between. And same was the case with the web. The same is the case with our telecommunications, with the likes of GSM standards and the standards that came after, sort of created this massively innovative wilderness that continuously expands, where the scale feeds into scale and create this massive population scale open infrastructure that allowed innovation to move to the ends, and therefore see what we are seeing right now with the kind of digital economy we have in terms of the underlying infrastructure. However, as much as the infrastructure remained open and enabled inclusion, the economic transaction got logged into sort of these parallel trenches that I just spoke about. So therefore, the essential idea, the motivation behind BeckN was to go back old school, to the design of internet itself, and imagine a transaction economy to be like the web that we have. Instead of the content web, is it possible to create a transaction web which allows consumer and provider of any economic resource ranging from, let's say, booking a ride, to finding content for education, to finding a doctor's calendar for teleconsultation, or finding a room to stay, or even energy to buy, be it as part of EV charging, or just buying energy for your home during an outage from a fragmented, idling battery of a school bus, which barely runs through the day, just 2 times a day, and lying idle for most of the time. Kind of finding that battery and buying energy from there, which if it is solar powered. So this whole idea of disaggregation, shifting from aggregation to interoperability, allowing for consumer and provider to be on any interface of their choice of make and model, sort of come together, discover each other, and get into economic transactions as if they were on the same platform, like an Uber, like an Airbnb, like an Amazon, but yet have the agency the choice to be on any edge and discover any provider on any other edge, and therefore create that universal discovery and enable inclusion and growth. So this sort of idea of a transaction open network was the essential motivation for us to sort of think about what is missing in the fabric of internet in terms of the protocol stack. And then we realized that there's an opportunity to probably add to that stack by writing this protocol, putting this protocol in place like BeckN, which allows for any provider to connect with any consumer, irrespective of which platform they're on, any goods or service to be made available to any edge, to any node on the network, um, for platforms to talk to each other, for all kinds of transactions, and for variety of transactions. Right, going from, if you fundamentally look at the DNA of any economic transaction between a consumer and provider, it broadly falls into these four buckets, starting with the discovery, where you're actually searching for something, finding it, and then you go into the order, where you're actually ordering, buying, subscribing, renting, leasing, sort of a stage. And then you go into the fulfillment part, where you're actually making sure that the goods or service actually getting fulfilled, either online or offline. And then the post fulfillment, where probably you're reviewing the fulfillment, maybe giving it a rating, initiating a cancellation or a refund or a part return. And this idea of these four fundamental building blocks of DOFP, discovery, order, fulfillment, and they happening in cascaded fashion across the supply chain, not just between one consumer and provider, but provider to maybe a wholesaler, wholesaler to a manufacturer, across the supply chain, be it for retail, food delivery, agriculture, energy. To make that possibility happen, we realize that there has to be a, a language that makes the machine talk in the DOFP terms, and that essentially is what the idea of BeckN was. So we started writing this protocol as completely open source in 2018, and we had a first version of a protocol come out in 2019. At that point, we were originally thinking about mobility. We got our first set of mobility networks on BeckN Protocol live, like a peer-to-peer decentralized Uber. And we started that in the city down south in India, in Kochi, and then we moved to Bangalore, the city where I come from, where actually the drivers reached out. And most of them probably would not have passed beyond 10th grade, but they fundamentally understood the protocol, in fact, more than some of the tech community around in Bangalore. And we do have a quite vibrant tech community. And they said that we understand the protocol, or rather the value of this protocol, because they're living that problem of having to deal with intermediary and their terms. And then they realized that with BeckN, it's possible for them to have their autonomy, their choice, their agency to set their own price, be discoverable whenever they want, however they want, and move from one platform to another if they would like to, without losing their reputation history, without losing their data, and creating that interoperability for them to participate in this ride-hailing economy online, which is the default future for their business, or the default present and future. And that led to this idea of open network for mobility, what you're seeing in the center of the screen, Namah Yatri, which has probably took off in a way more than what we thought would be a good adoption in the last 16, 18 months. We have about 320,000 drivers across 8-9 cities, Bangalore being the biggest. We do about 150 rides a day, 50,000 rides a day, and accrued more than 60 to 70 million dollars worth of revenue for the driver, without the driver having to part with any sort of that revenue with an intermediary, because it's a decentralized network. The entire ride revenue remains with the driver. And for them to come online, they would need a technology infrastructure, a node that speaks BeckN. And that is something that they've taken help of a local tech company, which was never in ride-hailing business, to offer it as a fixed fee SaaS model. They just pay a daily fixed fee to get online, and then the entire revenue, irrespective of how many rides you make, come to you directly at the same time. So much so that the driver gets paid directly by the consumer, not through the platform, but offline, either by cash or some of the mobile payments infrastructure we have in India called the UPI protocol, or other big protocol, which sort of inspired the work on BeckN. So that sort of idea got abstracted from mobility as a use case to broader range of economic resources. And the biggest network that came out actually originated from the pandemic in April 2020, called the Open Network for Digital Commerce, or ONDC, the section you're seeing on the left, which sort of, with the backing of the government, it was set up as a market-facing private entity, as a private utility, not for profit, with investments coming from banks and stock exchanges, mostly private institutions, sort of creating this utility to operate a network, not operate, rather orchestrate a network, because it's totally decentralized. Even they don't get to see the transactions happening on the network, ONDC. And that has done some great numbers. January 2023, we were doing about 1,000 transactions per month. And last month we closed about 9 million transactions. And these transactions include retail, like buying groceries from mom and pop stores, electronics, ordering food, just like how we order food from DoorDash, fashion, including, and then some deep B2B transactions, some export transactions. We did some transactions with Singapore using this protocol. So sort of this network is a multi-sector, multi-city network with several amount of sellers across 600 cities operating and doing business online without having to depend on an intermediary, rather getting a local tech provider or a local tech aggregator who does not have a kill switch on his business, because he can now use any platform to get on this network and still tap into the demand that is generally flowing through the network from the other end. And the other end, the consumers are using what would have been traditionally Venmo-like apps or WhatsApp to actually use them as a consumer buyer apps. We kind of see them becoming this e-commerce app thanks to the ONDC network. Every app in India can become an e-commerce app because they just have to plug into the network. The catalogs are coming from the other side. So that's another growth story. What we are seeing, which is very, very interesting in the last few months, is how this concept got adopted into energy with unified energy interface, starting with sort of bringing all the EV charging operators onto a single network, sort of driving away the discovery anxiety that comes with range anxiety of EV chargers, because every EV charging operator was using their own platform and expecting the customer to be in their database to start buying energy from them. We made that shift from siloed platforms to an open network so that customer can buy energy from their car dashboard and from any EV charger of any make across the country. And then we are seeing some early numbers. We do about 750 megawatt hours of energy every month. And this is the network that just got started in about February, March this year. So these sort of give you an idea of how, if you create a very light, minimal protocol with a very, very low footprint, but think of it as universal, scalable, sort of a protocol which addresses only one thing, the DOFP aspect of any economic transaction. It allows you to think of creating, it allows you to imagine this whole new possibility of networks, and in fact bring all of them come together and create this network of networks, just like the internet, but for economic transactions. We are seeing these networks come up not just in India. We have networks live in Brazil, Amsterdam, Gambia, across multiple sectors, be it, as I said, commerce, skilling, healthcare, access to social justice. If you want a 5-minute legal opinion from a local advocate or an attorney, you can get this. It's just like you get a doctor teleconsultation. Or we're doing circular economy and regenerative agriculture, sustainable fuel circularity are some of the projects we're doing. And then, of course, agriculture. These are the networks that are taking off. The idea was to essentially think of it as an open specifications play. It's a protocol, it's not a fat protocol. It does not require a blockchain or anything. It's completely tech neutral, tech and AI neutral. And we see ourselves, myself and my organization, more as the Genesis authors. But there's a larger community that is actually imagining. In fact, none of the retail energy was imagined by us. It was kind of the community which reached out and said, can I imagine BeckN for several other use cases? And that's how it's been growing. Now, with BeckN and AI, we think that there's a whole new possibility of how, of course, AI can sort of amplify the whole BeckN networks. I think that use case is obvious. Some of us can imagine, especially when you're trying to deal with language barrier across the country. As a country, we speak 22 official languages, but several thousand variants of it. But also, if you look at a globally, language, it does become a barrier, especially when AI models are largely learning from internet, where the default language, mostly the language seems to be in English, but we are creating very local language infrastructure with local AI models. It doesn't really matter. You can apply any of these models at either end. In fact, if you have a language model at one end of the node, what we're noticing is that the other end of the node also benefit from it, because it fundamentally removes the friction across the entire transaction. So both ends get to benefit, even if one end is using AI. But the other way to see it, which is the most exciting part, is how BeckN is sort of amplifying AI. Because what we see as the future is that future is going to be a mix of agents and humans interacting with each other. And I think there is a need for this mixed economy transactions to have ground truth, a contracting infrastructure which establishes those sort of claims, the prompts that you get from these agents and bots to actually be having a ground truth in terms of actual contracts to confirm that when the two agents spoke, they actually made the booking for your hotel stay, for your holiday, and they were not probably hallucinating or doing something else. And that idea of creating an open infrastructure as a contracting framework sort of builds a ground truth and trust. And that's where BeckN, because BeckN as a protocol allows every transaction to be a micro contract, programmable micro contract. And it allows you to also build a responsible AI ecosystem with open network policies, and also allow for this contextual purpose-centric search. We were just demoing something in MIT a few months ago wherein we could show that somebody going from Colorado to Yellowstone could kind of create a self-organizing itinerary for himself in terms of finding an EV charger, finding a restaurant, booking the Yellowstone ticket. And while on his way, there was a weather update, and some of these chargers that he booked probably went out of function. And then how the network self-organized, spoke to multiple other agents on the other side, and created an alternative curated plan. And that idea of a self-organizing network, which sort of is based on the principles of inclusion and fairness and allow any node to be plugged in to participate in that economy, are some of the exciting possibilities we are seeing when we put BeckN and AI put in together for some of the framing that we're working on. I think I'll stop here. I think I've taken well more than 10 minutes, but I'll stop here and see if there are any questions, any thoughts.
Sujith, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Look, let's open up for some questions to Sujith. I know we're keeping you up late. He wants to go to bed because he's got an early flight tomorrow. But hands up if you have questions for Sujith. I think I'm going to go first. I'd like to share just a quick slide here. Sujith, in our ambition, and the reason we invited you to talk to us is because we have an ambition to use a protocol like the BeckN Protocol. We in the broad ambition is to democratize AI, and the way we're doing it is by enabling everyone to own their own personal AI. But the current topology for AI, Doc Searls calls it we're still in the mainframe era of AI, where AI runs in the clouds of the oligopoly that currently control AI. We want to bring it down to earth so it can run at the edge. And so we've been ideating on a 3-layered community fabric, a storage fabric, a community inference layer, and then the business layer on top. We call it the intent casting network. This is a decade-old name, but we want a battle-tested protocol that actually is the protocol for this network.
Absolutely. Happy to see how some of these ideas can be enabled. So I think we are probably in early days of putting BeckN and AI together, so I wouldn't want to get ahead of myself to see how some of this can be done. We are trying to see if we can put together a decentralized AI on an open network where you actually have the models going to the edges instead of the data coming to a centralized model. And that also probably could be some of the BeckN use case we could look at. But yeah, very exciting, Reza. So happy to explore more and see how BeckN can fit in. I think I have some fair confidence that BeckN is a 5-year effort. It's fairly battle hardened in terms of knowing some of the realities, especially in retail, especially when you have physical fulfillments and you have one platform doing the placing the order, the other platform actually getting the order from the retailer, and there's a third platform which is actually getting somebody to pick up the order and have it delivered. And do that across multiple orders with multi-pickup, multi-delivery, with part returns, part cancellations. I think we've gone through those motions of seeing what works, what doesn't. So I'm fairly confident that with BeckN and some of the energy use cases are extremely interesting. we think that it's pretty much there to get started. And it's not just about BeckN. I think with BeckN, we are creating a whole sort of other building blocks on top of it. Especially in ONDC, we are creating a sort of an independent platform agnostic reputation infrastructure with distributed ledger, wherein the sellers can maintain their reputation agnostic of the platform where they are tenants, and carry that reputation wherever they go, whichever platform. I think it's a very, very powerful construct here, because you're putting that reputation and data, which is their sort of currency to participate in the digital economy, back in their hands and make it happen. We are also solving for the questions I think some of you have, that who actually takes care of the entire order getting delivered, and whose neck should I kind of catch or choke if something goes wrong. And we are able to convince sellers and customers, and the good number of 9 million orders is a vindication of that, to say that absence of centralization doesn't mean absence of structure. Decentralization does offer a structure, and that structure offers, in fact, independent third-party issue and dispute resolution providers to participate, who do not come with the bias of protecting the platform's interest on either end, either on the consumer end or the seller end. So we are seeing a whole new set of participants coming as ODR, or online dispute resolution providers, and kind of giving an independent dispute resolution provision. So sort of the amazing possibilities that it shows up is great. And we can probably bring all of that. It's not just BeckN, it's a BeckN aware other building blocks that kind of makes the whole ecosystem more trusted, more configurable, and enable so many other possibilities.
Sujith, you got a couple of questions. So Doc Searles had his hand up first, and then Sam Johnson next. So Doc, off you go.
Yeah, my only question was the Aadhaar connection. Does BeckN require Aadhaar or an equivalent of Aadhaar? I'm thinking what we're missing. No. I didn't think so. So I just wanted to get that off the table.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I think for the audience here, I think the question could be relevant, because as a country and as a community that I'm part of, we started off creating independent population scale building blocks. So India has been creating these Lego blocks for what we call as a horizontal reusable building blocks. ID, digital state-of-the-art digital ID on cloud was one such that we started with in 2009. And that was because India had a different set of problems to deal with. Our banking penetrations were as low as 17%. Our tele density was not improving. And the reason was people could not offer a single proof formal ID to get this KYC done and be part of the formal economy. So we created a very, very basic 4-field ID system that enabled that transformation to happen, and then make KYC something as small as 3 minutes. Today in India, you can open a bank account or a telecom connection in under 3 minutes. We went from 17% banking penetration to 85% banking penetration in 9 years. Any country would have taken 5 decades. We did that in 9. And that sort of set in motion a whole sort of other building blocks. But the way we designed those building blocks, they are not codependent with each other. The next thing that we did was a payments protocol, which does not necessarily need the ID system, because it happens after you created the bank account and is independent of the ID system, which does about 14 billion transactions per day. That's more than what MasterCard does in the whole world per month. India does it in one country per month. And that growth is in 7 years. So it's kind of these independent building blocks is how we design. So UPI, which is the payment protocol, or BeckN, none of them need any of the preceding building blocks like Aadhaar. So just to be sure, it could use any Aadhaar, any decentralized, or even platform native IDs. In fact, BeckN doesn't come in the way of creating one single ID for any economic participant just because they happen to be on one network. We think that they are two orthogonal designs, not dependent on each other.
Fantastic. Sam, your hand's up.
G'day. So I'm working on building the PyOS and looking at things to include, protocols and products and things to include. And I can see there's a lot of potential here in terms of, particularly as we get onto agents. We're working on assistants now, but we're getting onto agents quite soon. And being able to go and find products. And I've had a similar conversation with Doc about intent casting. But the question, I guess, is, and this is really to assess the fit for what we're doing and the kind of overlap between projects. I mean, if it was such a good idea, everyone would be doing it, right? It's kind of and I realize that products need to take off, and that's fine. But why is AI so important to BeckN and vice versa? Is, I guess, I know you touched on it a little bit there, but do you have any thoughts about that? Is like, why is this? Do you see this as like a massive opportunity for you to leverage AI to intent casting, for example, doesn't work without AI. Like, you've got this marketplace chicken and egg problem.
Yeah. From where I come from, Sam, I think AI has a immense amount of social potential. We see it as a social infrastructure. One of the biggest exclusion barriers in India, just to give you an example, is language. It's very difficult to get people to converse with each other, and most of the apps speak and use English as a thing, and local vernacular content is barely abysmal. And we know that some of these large models are built largely on English. But we think that a language infrastructure, which is built on AI, can significantly reduce friction. In fact, to the order of 10 or 15x, if we can have a local fisherman speak in Tamil and sell fish to somebody up in India who's probably speaking into the app in Gujarati or any other language. So that's sort of an inclusion, whether it's access to education, access to learning, access to markets, access to capital and finance. We're doing financial services on BeckN Protocol. We think that AI is a superpower that we leverage, provided it's done in a way which is inclusive, open, responsible, all of that. So we see that as a scope of opportunity. But in general, I think transaction economy, even from an efficiency point of view, if you take the energy grids and others, of course, AI and energy are, you never put those two into one sentence, especially talking about grid. But in some of the edge cases and others, I think it has the potential, if done well, to remove some of the usability friction that generally comes, whether it's the language or any other part. But of course, it does also come with a flip side. So BeckN, for example, that for the work we have done, we are only starting with AI now, and we don't think that AI is critical. But I think the space of transaction AI, not talking about the texting, talking AI, but actually about affecting economic contracts, we think that AI BeckN is an important infrastructure to consider, especially you want to create regulatory guardrails and all that. So we think that some part of the transaction AI needs BeckN or infrastructure like BeckN. So we think it's the other way. I think that there's an important way of introducing trust in an AI only or an AI intensive ecosystem from a transaction standpoint of view. So we're looking at a very thin sort of a sliver of a space in AI on transaction AI. And that's where we think BeckN kind of brings a bit more openness, trust, and responsibility.
So I'd agree. Language is very important. But it's a bit nice to have. You can have a marketplace in the same, like most of our market here, for example, is in English, and so language isn't. I appreciate that it's an issue in other areas, and it can open up English markets to Japanese speakers or Indian or whatever. But I think there is an area here for us to work on, and particularly around just being aware of what's available. So I can't, if I ask my assistant wash my car, right? Or if my agent says you haven't washed the car in 2 weeks, I'm going to organize to wash the car. That's all well and good, but today it's not possible really to do that without like going and scraping websites that you don't have permission to scrape. So I think that there's something here for us to do, and maybe it's with you or your colleagues or whatever to work on that. Kind of what am I capable of doing? Yeah, and that's where I think AI is going to be probably quite important in taking the next step for BeckN.
Yeah, I think we should be done with scraping websites to creating more programmable, permeable catalogs that can speak to other systems in an interoperable way, get expressed and presented in an interoperable way, and sort of create AI-aware sort of catalogs and AI-aware agents on the other side talk to each other. I think that's going to be the future, especially when we're moving away from text-based prompts to more voice and other forms. I think some of that things would be very useful. So I agree with you, Sam. Just a +1 on what you just said. Yeah.
I mean, I'd be happy to see us eliminate websites and just have like a sitemap for AI, right? Where you can just download all of the specs for the products offered by that company and then have a protocol like BeckN so you can actually do something with them.
Absolutely. And I think that it's possible to have extremely passive catalogs. So, I mean, we talk about not society rising up to technology, but technology meeting where the society is. So it is possible with AI for local businesses to create scrappy catalogs or low fidelity catalogs, but then AI from a third party trusted can probably compensate for that friction with catalogs and sort of still offer a great experience for the buyer, and sort of empower the small business the way he could not have done it himself. So I see some of those possibilities happening.
Fantastic. Sujith, I want to thank you so much for coming on. It's late at night for you. We look forward to maybe a deep dive working session at a time that's more convenient for you. So we will get up early for you, but we'd like to move our sort of community fabric discussion along, and we'll definitely take a look into the BeckN Protocol in more detail. Where should we go? Should we? Is the BeckNProtocol.io the place to go?
I think that's a place to start. In fact, I would recommend everybody go there and click onto the Discord invitation there and be part of the Discord community. Once you get in, of course, you'll have a whole lot of people, talking about it, offering answers to your questions, deeper discussions. Of course, GitHub is a place you can probably read through all the issues and discussions we've been having. Some of the threads are fascinating in terms of how do you create a multi-cycle negotiation-based buying and selling in a B2B setting. I think that definitely those are the places. And if you are in Discord, and if you're going to go into the sort of the tech, gory details of tech of backend, there's a whole lot of 8 hours of AV content where my principal architect is explaining backend across its various layers. So all of that is available in Discord. Or please give us a shout out. We do have a community, and we have community managers from FIDE, sort of seeing who's coming in and what kind of questions they have. And that's a great meeting place. That's a great space. But do also see ondc.org for actual networks that are live. So one good example is ondc.com. It's a massive network across 300, 600 cities, scaling up very quickly. And there are some of the other networks like, maybe I'll just put in some of those websites too here, Reza, in the chat.
Okay.
And I'd love to catch up about the comments on the chat as well, but let me just put them here and I'll let you continue with the rest of the agenda. I don't want to hold up the audience for this piece. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, put them in the chat, and then feel free to drop whenever you need to. Thank you so much, Sujith. We're going to continue now with our agenda, and well, let's go straight to the work group updates, and probably just in the interest of time, let's make them brief. Sam, you're up first for the operating system, the PiOS update.
Yeah, we've been making steady progress on the operating system. We have implemented logging throughout this week so that you have some ability to get in and see what's going on, and that was far more complicated than you would have hoped, because you had to tie into UVcorn and everything to make all of that information come through to the logs. So we have access logs, and then you have debug logging and so on, which is an important, boring back-end piece of annoying work. But it's done, so that's good. And we've made good progress as well on what does it mean to install, right? So we have the ability to install an ability now, and there's been a lot of discussion about kind of does an application look like that goes on top of our operating system. One of the things that we ran into with installing Python dependencies is that currently it installs it all into the same environment. That's not going to work. There are certain things like LangChain that don't want to be installed at runtime, and normally you shouldn't install into a running Python environment anyway, but you can. And LangChain in particular was one that didn't like that. So now what we're looking to do is to have what we'll implement next is to have environments for the different abilities. For example, ChromaDB will have its own virtual environment, Python virtual environment. Recall that we're avoiding using containers out of the box, because we don't want the first item that you have to do to be install Docker and learn how to be a DevOps engineer, because it's an end user product, right? So we've and then the other thing related to that is that you if you have an application then this is coming together now. What does an application or a stack look like? Like, what does the Pi virtual assistant or the Kwaai teaching assistant look like? Well, it kind of needs its own environment for the parts that are unique to it, and it needs a shared environment for the parts that are not unique to it, like the vector store. And so some things will be in their environment as an ability, but other things will go into, you'll be able to create an environment for the SAM bot, and a different environment for the SAM agent, and a different environment for the virtual TA, the SAM TA or whatever. And those things will be isolated. So when you install something, you'll be able to select what environment it all goes into. And so that's progressing really well. And there's been a lot of good discussions about it. Ties in quite closely to the brand architecture discussion like how does all of this stuff fit together? What's Kwai's role? Kwai's role is not, for example, to compete with the people who might use Kwaai, like the channels. And so I've used analogies like kind of Linux and its relationship with Ubuntu, another really cool South African name there. You know, does Ubuntu ship like compete with the databases that ship on it, like Postgres and MySQL? Well, it doesn't. And so we shouldn't compete with, you know, we're not going to try and write like llama.cpp. And similarly, we shouldn't be trying to like write our own web interface when there's things like Open Web UI. So all of that is coming along really, really quite quickly now, and I'm also very pleased to see some people jumping in and starting to cut code as well. The work I did overnight was all on AAA, so authentication, authorization, and accounting, and that was prompted by some work that Robert was doing on the authentication for the UI. Finally, we're starting to work more closely with Arcus Nexus. And making sure that we're aligned on the development there.
Great, thanks so much. Front end update from Balaji, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. So this week, the group met and we went through all the Figma mockups for the professor side. Again, this is the MVP for education. There's further thinking that was done, and we debated a few aspects of what the user interface and user experience should look like from the professor side and the student side. Robert Binning and Roy on the Arcus Nexus side, they are starting to take these wireframes and starting to implement. I think Robert checked in GitHub in a Kwaai Lab repository. He created a repository with the React project implementing some of the screenshots and working with Arcus Nexus to combine efforts so that it's not duplicate work. That's pretty much progress. That's, again, we are going from just mockups to actually implementing some of those. The second piece is working closely with the OS team headed by Sam, trying to consume out of the OS all the APIs that are exposed, so the application can kickstart installation, process all the dependencies, and then start consuming the language models getting exposed out of the OS layer, things like that. So we are continuing to make progress. Next week we'll have more updates.
Thanks so much, Balaji. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick update on the beta program. If you go to the website, actually, let me share this interesting tab. Share this tab. If you go to the website Kwaai Beta, and you can see there's an application form. The Kwaai site has a beta page. Now, I've not publicized this page. I mean, the page is up there. And I think Afshin sent out a list. We've already had 12 respondents. And already Cornell Medical School has already got the pre-beta up and running. They actually took the code from the GitHub repo, built it, and they've got it up and running, and it's pretty fabulous. They sent us pictures of it. Of course, they've got support questions now, so this is this is where, you know, the issues come. So we're in a pre-beta phase. Let me just list the companies or the schools that are signing up for the beta. It's UC Riverside, Waterloo, Lagos University, College of the Canyons. Swiss Vault has signed up as an infrastructure sponsor. So if you have storage needs, and I know if Joseph's on the call, he can maybe chime in for a bit. Joseph suffers from Swiss Vault, but he's also got an associate company, iBridge Cloud, who are also want to become infrastructure sponsors for the beta. Montclair State. So there's an academic network, the Mass Open Cloud on the East Coast, and this is a network of academic institutes that share infrastructure, compute, and storage infrastructure. So that is great that we're into that network as well. We've got the Barack Obama Male Leadership Academy. I need to reach out to them. We've got the Technology Africa Fund Institute, Elemental Health, the Art Center of College, Art Center College of Design. Marketing group, I need a call out. I need I'm partway through drafting a press release to go out to actually make this go big. Look, our aim is to land 30 colleges that are going to be running the beta. And yeah, we should make sure these are colleges maybe of the category of Cornell Medical School. I know we've got Harvard in our pipeline through Bruce Schneier there. So that's the beta update. Maybe Toby and Carsten, you can give us an update on the hackathon.
Absolutely. I have a couple of slides. I'll share.
Go ahead. You can overload me. Yeah.
All right. All right. So, still working on a lot of the branding stuff. Unfortunately, the designer didn't get me the updates. He was supposed to have them to me by 10 a.m. So I apologize, everybody, but he said he'll get them to me shortly. So I'll post them in the Slack group. I had a little hiccup this week, and it just kind of reminded me of the importance of making sure we have processes and protocols. Mainly my fault. One of the LA event, there was an investor on the page. Somehow I put it in the document. It was supposed to be on a talk to, ask request if he wants to be a judge. I accidentally put it in the wrong document. It got published to the site, and he wasn't happy. So I had to hear him screaming at me early one morning. So it wasn't nice. So I just wanted to say, if you're, just remember, be nice, even if you got to have a difficult conversation with somebody. So,
Toby, share the love, share the load. You're taking a lot on your shoulders. There are lots of other volunteers, and guys, help Toby out.
Please.
It's basically Toby and Carsten trying to manage, 12 or more events across the country. Okay.
Well, we have some other people, Rianne, Ayuri, John Connors, but we need more, right? Buddy Brent Bushnell is connected with Jesse and Asante, and they're working on something to try to get this DIY arcade as part of that money that we can go after in Georgia, that $5 million. So we'll keep you guys updated on that. We did remove the LA event from Dev Post, and we're going to change the date on the Luma page. It looks like maybe UCLA may still be in play for a location, just at a different date. And then we also have a co-working space. I think it's called Ground Floor, who we're waiting for a date from them. So we'll adjust that as soon as we get the location locked. This event is next week. So this is our lightning talk next week. I just want to remind everybody, everyone on the call has the ability to share it with 900 of your contacts. So please, just like as many of you did for Sujith today, that's why we have such a great turnout. Please do the same for Soul League and Double. They're one of our in-kind sponsors for the hackathon. And Zilliz, Z-I-L-L-I-Z, it's a vector database company. They have agreed to sponsor sweatshirts, hoodies for the event. They're going to give it to us, and we can print other information on the back. So their logo will be on the front, but they'll give us as many hoodies as we need for our organizing teams in each city. So all of our staff team members will get these nice hoodies. And they also have agreed to come and do RAG lightning talks on Friday nights, mentor on Saturday, and then also be a judge. They haven't told me what their challenge is going to be, but they are going to have some sort of a challenge with a prize as well. And as usual, just call to action. We need, people join the Discord. add your role on LinkedIn, repost content. Advisors, if you haven't booked a call, please do. Hackathons, we need outreach and sponsors and mentors. The Summer of Code program has started. Quite a few of the interns are on here. Hopefully, let me shut up so they can get to introduce themselves. Thank you. And anybody that wants to help on the events, please ping us. Me and Karsten welcome your help. And you want to add anything, Karsten? Go ahead.
Nope, I just dropped some links in the chats for some of the things that you were talking about. Any other questions, just let us know. Thanks. When we do have, there's a Discord server that's linked right at the top of the Pipalooza page. So if you want to come join the conversations, and I mean, that's where we're organizing with everybody and all the mentors in all the different cities, aside from regular meetings and things that will be happening. Thanks.
Great. Okay. So we've got a little bit of time for new member voices. Hands up if you're new to Kwaai, and introduce yourself. Say a little bit about yourself. If you don't speak up, I'm going to call on you. If you have also, if you haven't spoken for a while.
That includes all of our interns. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
I see you guys in the crowd.
Okay, Kalissa's hand went up first. Off you go, Kalissa.
Hi, I'm Kalissa. I'm a current university student at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and I'm majoring in computer science with like a focus in AI. So yeah.
Thanks so much. Austin, your hand is up. Austin. There
Hey guys, my name is Austin Dumas. I'm a rising sophomore at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and I'm working with Toby and a couple of the other interns. I'm at Rely Capital, and I'm kind of more on the business side of things. So I'm actually doing market research on like open cap table management and kind of the software that we're looking to create.
Great. Okay, so Karen, your hand's next. Welcome, Austin.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Karen Kahn. I have a small company, Makeosity, and I develop STEM curriculum for New York City schools. I'm very interested in AI. I feel that it'll really make a difference as far as diversity, STEM, and learning go. So I'm really excited to be part of this team.
Thanks so much, Karen. Karen, I'm going to reach out to you separately to see if you can help on the our closed beta that's going to be running in colleges and universities. I think it'd be great to have your participation. Jackie is up next. Thanks.
Hey, I don't know if you can see me. Oh, geez, you had my Google picture there that my son had put. That's not so good. In case anybody's wondering about a gorilla crow chimera. This is like completely different language to me. My background actually is pediatric clinical trials. I'm a drug developer, researcher, and I work in the pharmaceutical biotechnology industry. So AI comes up everywhere. AI comes up a lot with us in from a lot of different people saying different things and meaning different things.
Jackie, we've got a very strong life sciences membership, and one of the volunteers, Diego, is running he's using AI to build a capability to detect drug allergies. So it's just basically a question and answer thing. But so you should come and join him and find Diego. Great.
Find
okay.
Diego. Okay.
Find Diego. Yes. Where in the world is Diego? I know
exactly.
Okay. Thanks so much. We are. Do we have any more hands? No. I'm going to call on you if we don't. Max, you haven't spoken for a while. Max S. I'm going to.
I was trying to stay under the radar. But,
no, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay. Well, Max Solonsky. So I'm a former chief security officer of Blackline and previously worked for large corporations like Disney, Warner Brothers, and a few others. I met Reza and Balaji this week at an AppSec conference, and they're both super good at making people interested in something that seems very promising. So I'm personally an information security professional, and I'm big on privacy, and I'm big on making sure that security is used to not control, but to put guardrails around some technologies that are promising but are also potentially dangerous. So with this conversation that Reza hosted at AppSec SoCal, I was really intrigued by what Kwaai is and the mission and everything else. So I decided to join and be a fly on the wall for a while to see what it is and maybe contribute later.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. That's normally the path of people that are Kwaai curious. They they come along to the weekly public meeting, just dip their toe in to see what the network's about, see what the community's about. Look, we are brought together by a similar sort of angst that AI is heading down a dystopian path, and perhaps there's something we can do about it. Definitely, if we do nothing, it's heading in an unsafe direction. AI is currently controlled by an oligopoly. We don't feel they have our best interests at heart, and so rather than sit back and be passive about it, we're going to do something about it. So thanks so much, Max, for connecting with us at the conference. We presented. I've now stopped delivering death by PowerPoint presentations. Instead, I talk to a bot, or rather ask the bot questions, and we've got now 4 bots that we demo. This makes for a great demo. I'm not sure in actual use whether the face is actually going to be whether the visual will be there, but it makes for a great on stage demo. And so you're there in an audience, and we had at this conference some great speakers. We had Dave Grantham there. Cam was there as well. And we actually programmed the AI talks for the conference, but only 3 talks. So we had Carl Mehta. Here's Dave Grantham was talking about data provenance and the work that Cryptid is doing in cryptographically ensuring provenance across distributed networks. We also met up with Carl Mehta, who's I guess a recovering VC. He was a partner at Menlo Ventures, but he's done so many other things. There was one of the founders of PlaySpan and numerous other things. Just sold his recent edtech startup, and well, we were courting him for support and investment and so on. So look, you can go to the events page to see what events are coming up. You can also, if you've joined up as a volunteer, you get access to the Slack channel, so you can commune with the rest of the community. We're coming up to the end. The very next meeting after that is our idea exchange meeting. If someone can post the link for that, that'll be great, so that people can follow on if they want to. And,
link is in the chat.
Fantastic. Okay, so look, quick call to action. I need help on the beta program, and Toby needs help on the hackathon, and we need an owner of the beta program. It can't be me. Unfortunately, Janet Corral, who got busy. Basically, that's what happens in volunteer organizations. You know, people take the ball with a bit, they run up the field, and then they have to pass it on to someone else. So looking for someone in the education space, in academia, to come and help out on the beta program.
So this could be, Reza, it doesn't have to be, but it could be somebody reasonably technical from a customer success kind of point of view. But it also could be somebody who's not technical and good with projects.
And it can be both, especially because one of the ways that we can balance the people needing to take time to do things is by having two leaders who work in conjunction together and complement each other's skills.
Fantastic. Okay. Look, we're on time. Gosh, didn't think we'd do it. Happy Kwaai Day. If I don't speak to you again, have a great weekend. I'm going to be taking my wife on a birthday trip to Santa Barbara. Apparently Elvis is playing. So, okay, not me. Elvis Costello is playing with Daryl Hall and John. No, not John Oates, just Daryl Hall. Okay, and these are old-timer names that you've probably not heard of, but that's what we're doing this weekend. In fact, we're heading off straight after the idea exchange thing. So have a great weekend. If I don't see you, I'm going to give a shout out to Daniel Wilson, who's got a AI think tank podcast. Find him. Dan, post your link in the.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'll do that right now.
And,
Thanks, hey, everybody. Just kind of staying quiet here. Yeah, it's been great having. I bring up Kwaai in everything I go to. I was a guest on a podcast a few weeks ago, and I brought up Kwaai.
Fantastic.
I was talking to somebody, I brought up Kwaai. Like I keep talking about it.
Yeah,
and promoting. So it's good. I'll meet with Karsten this weekend and see where I can actually help a little bit more. Here. So go to my LinkedIn. You'll see there's a link to the AI Think Tank podcast. Swiss Vault's going to be on, and we're just going to kind of keep moving. So see you guys in the next meeting.
Right. Okay. Membership is now at 457 and growing rapidly. Thanks so much.
Wow.
Okay. Keep well. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Keep on pushing.